The large metal chamber was quiet, except for the soft hum of air machines. 12 different alien beings sat around a curved table, their eyes focused on the creature standing in the center. Zexhai looked nothing like the proud warrior he once was. His blue shell body showed deep cuts and burn marks. His 3 yellow eyes moved quickly from side to side, never staying still for long. The leader of the group, a tall being with purple skin, spoke in a calm voice. "Tell us what happened at Earth, Commander Zexhai. Tell us why your mighty fleet of 200 ships came back with only 30. Zexhai's voice shook as he began to speak. "We thought Earth would be easy. We watched them for many months from far away. We saw their small weapons, their broken governments, and their simple technology. Our war leaders called them just another weak world that we could take without much trouble." He paused and looked at his clawed hands. "We were so wrong. We did not understand what humans really are." The Catherian Empire had ruled over 17 worlds. Their ships were fast and strong. Their soldiers were trained from birth to fight and win. They had never lost a war in 300 years. Earth was supposed to be conquest number 18. Our fleet moved toward Earth like we always did, Zexhai continued. We flew in perfect formation. Our ships were shining and beautiful. We thought the humans would see us and give up right away. That is what always happened before. But something felt wrong from the moment they reached Earth's solar system. The space around the blue planet was too quiet. Human radio signals had stopped days before their arrival. There were no ships flying between Earth and its moon. No signs of the busy space traffic they had seen during their months of watching. Admiral Krexter gave the order to move closer, Zexhai said. He was excited. He wanted to land on Earth and claim it for our Emperor. He said this would be the fastest conquest in our history. The human ships appeared like ghosts coming out of darkness. One moment the space around Earth was empty. The next moment, 50 human vessels surrounded the Catherian fleet. They had been hiding behind Earth's moon, using the large rock to block the alien sensors. The human ships looked strange and ugly compared to the smooth Catherian vessels. They were covered in weapons that stuck out like spikes. Some ships looked like they had been built from pieces of other ships welded together. Nothing matched. Nothing looked proper or military. Their leader spoke to us over the radio, Zexhai remembered. His name was Admiral Jake Morrison. His voice was calm, like he was talking about the weather. He said, "Unknown ships you are. Not welcome here. Leave now, or we will make you leave." Admiral Krexter had laughed at the message. The idea that these primitive humans would threaten the mighty Catherian Empire seemed like a joke. He ordered his ships to move into attack formation, expecting the humans to run away in fear. Instead, the humans attacked first. Captain Lisa Brooks led the first strike from the side. Her ships moved in ways that made no sense to Catherian military thinking. Instead of staying in neat lines and firing at long distance, the human ships scattered like insects and attacked from all directions at once. The human weapons were not as powerful as Catherian guns, but they used them in ways that confused and frightened the aliens. Instead of trying to destroy enemy ships cleanly, the humans aimed for engines, weapons, and life support systems. They wanted to disable and capture, not just destroy. Their tactics were insane, Zexhai told the tribunal. They flew their ships like they did not care if they lived or died. Commander Pete Williams crashed his damaged ship right into our biggest warship. He killed himself and 300 of his crew just to destroy one of our vessels. The battle lasted 6 hours. The humans used every trick they could think of. Major Susan Hayes had hidden missile launchers on Earth's moon. When the Catherian ships got close, she fired hundreds of rockets at them. The aliens had not expected weapons to be waiting for them on what they thought was an empty rock. Human ships would pretend to be damaged and ask for help. When Catherian rescue ships came close, the humans would attack with hidden weapons. They used lies and tricks that went against every rule of honorable warfare that the Catherians knew. We lost over half our fleet in those 6 hours, Zexai. Sahid, his voice getting quieter. Ships that had fought in 20 battles were destroyed by humans who had never been in space war before. Our soldiers were scared. They had never fought an enemy that seemed to enjoy dying if it meant hurting us. The worst part was how the humans worked together. Every ship seemed to know what every other ship was doing. They moved like parts of one big machine. When one human ship was destroyed, others would immediately take its place and continue the attack. Admiral Krexter made the decision to retreat to Earth's surface. In space, the humans had too many advantages. On the ground, the Catherians would have more soldiers and better weapons. Ground fighting was something they understood and were good at. We thought we were being smart, Zexai explained. We had fought ground wars on many worlds. We knew how to land armies and take control of cities. We had done it many times before. The remaining Catherian ships flew down through Earth's atmosphere. They chose to land near the biggest human cities. This was standard military thinking. If you control the cities, you control the world. The humans would have to surrender to protect their families and homes. As the alien ships landed, millions of humans watched from their windows and streets. But instead of running away in panic, many humans seemed calm. Some even seemed excited, like they had been waiting for this moment. The first Catherian soldiers stepped out of their ships onto Earth's soil. The air smelled different from their home world. The gravity was slightly lighter. The sun felt warm on their shells. Everything seemed normal and safe. That feeling lasted about 10 minutes. The first human attacks came from everywhere at once. Humans hiding in buildings shot at alien soldiers with small weapons. Other humans drove vehicles filled with explosives into alien equipment. Children threw bottles filled with burning liquid from windows above the streets. It was not like any war we had ever fought, Zexai said. There were no battle lines, no clear enemies to fight. Every human seemed to be a soldier. Every building seemed to be a fort. Every street seemed to be a trap. The Catherian soldiers tried to use their standard tactics. They formed into groups and moved through the cities in organized patterns. But the humans did not fight in organized patterns. They attacked and then disappeared. They used the cities themselves as weapons. Colonel Danny Rodriguez led groups of human fighters who knew every tunnel and hidden path in their cities. They would attack alien patrols and then vanish into subway tunnels or sewers. The Catherians would chase them and find nothing but empty darkness. By the end of the first day on Earth, the Catherian commanders realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had not invaded a world. They had entered a trap that the humans had been preparing for months. That night, as we tried to sleep in our camps, we could hear them, Zexai whispered. The humans were moving in the darkness around us. They were watching us, planning, waiting. We knew that tomorrow would be worse than today. The alien warrior stopped talking and looked around the room at the 12 beings who were judging his story. His 3 eyes were wet with what might have been tears. I have fought in many wars, he said. I have conquered many worlds, but I had never fought humans before. I did not know that some species would rather die fighting than live as prisoners. I did not know that some species see war not as a terrible thing to be ended quickly, but as a test to see who wants to win more. The tribunal was silent. They waited for Zexai to continue his story, knowing that the worst parts were still to come. Zexai's voice became rough and broken as he began to speak again. The alien warrior's hands shook as he remembered the nightmare that followed their landing on Earth. The 12 beings around the table leaned forward, wanting to hear every word. The ground war started the next morning, Zexai said. We thought we understood war. We had fought on 17 worlds. We had rules. We had honor. We had ways of fighting that made sense. But humans do not follow rules that other species made. The Catherian forces had landed in what they believed were perfect positions, near New York, London, Tokyo, and other major human cities. Their plan was simple and had worked many times before. Take the cities, control the people, and force the government to surrender. We had 60,000 soldiers, Zexai continued. We had tanks and flying machines. We had weapons that could destroy buildings. We thought 60,000 trained warriors could control millions of weak humans. The first shock came at sunrise. The Catherians expected to find frightened civilians hiding in their homes. Instead, they found empty streets filled with traps. Every corner held dangers they had not expected. Colonel Danny Rodriguez had spent months preparing for this day. He led groups of human fighters who knew every secret tunnel, every hidden passage, every weakness in their own cities. These humans did not wear uniforms or carry flags. They looked like ordinary people, but they fought like demons. They came from everywhere, Zexai remembered, from windows above us, from holes in the ground below us, from doors that looked like they led to empty buildings. We would walk down a street that seemed safe, and suddenly half our soldiers would be dead. The humans used their cities as weapons. They had filled buildings with explosives that could be set off by remote control. They had dug tunnels that connected basements across entire neighborhoods. They had turned sewers into highways for moving fighters from place to place without being seen. Sergeant Amy Clark was one of the humans who organized what they called resistance networks. She worked with ordinary people like teachers, shop owners, and mechanics. They all became soldiers when the aliens arrived. The old woman selling flowers on the corner would signal when alien patrols were coming. The man fixing cars would pass messages between fighters. The children playing in the park would watch and report on alien movements. We could not tell who was dangerous and who was safe, Zexai said. A human child with a backpack might be carrying explosives. A human woman pushing a baby carriage might have weapons hidden inside. A human man in a business suit might be a trained killer. The Catherians tried to establish control by setting up checkpoints and patrols. They wanted to search every human and every vehicle, but the humans had prepared for this too. They had hidden weapons and supplies in places the aliens would never think to look. Captain Roy Patterson worked with Lieutenant Katie Murphy to create what humans called urban warfare tactics. They would attack alien positions and then destroy entire blocks of buildings to prevent the aliens from using them. The humans showed no care for their own property or their own cities. They destroyed their own homes to hurt us, Zexai said, his voice full of confusion. They would blow up their own schools and hospitals if we tried to use them as bases. They cared more about fighting us than protecting their own things. The alien found this impossible to understand. In every other war, civilians tried to protect their homes and belongings. They would surrender rather than see their cities destroyed. But humans seemed to think that a destroyed city was better than a city controlled by enemies. The psychological warfare was even worse than the physical fighting. The humans seemed to know exactly how to make the Catherian soldiers afraid and confused. They would leave messages written in alien language on walls. They would play sounds through hidden speakers that made the aliens think they were being surrounded. Private Billy Thompson became famous among the alien forces, though they did not know his name. He held a subway station for 3 days against hundreds of Catherian soldiers. He had no backup, no supplies, and no hope of rescue. But he kept fighting anyway, using traps and hidden weapons to kill aliens who tried to pass through his station. We sent 50 soldiers to take 1 human in 1 small underground room, Zexai said. Only 12 came back. The human died, but he had cost us 38 trained warriors. We could not afford to lose so many soldiers for so little gain. The humans also did things that went against every rule of war that civilized species followed. They would pretend to surrender, then attack when the aliens came close. They would use their own wounded as bait to draw alien medics into traps. They would hide weapons in places where medical supplies should be. Medic Helen Foster was an example of how confusing humans could be. She would risk her life to save wounded soldiers, both human and alien. She treated injured Cytherian prisoners with the same care she gave to her own people. But she also helped design new ways to hurt alien forces. She could be gentle and caring in one moment, and deadly dangerous in the next. She saved the life of one of our soldiers who was badly hurt, Zexai remembered. She worked for hours to help him heal. Then the next day, she helped human fighters plant explosives that killed 20 more of our soldiers. We could not understand how one person could be so kind and so cruel. The aliens tried to use their superior technology to gain advantage. They had flying machines that could see through walls. They had weapons that could destroy entire buildings. They had communications that could not be blocked by human interference. But the humans adapted to everything. They learned to move through underground tunnels where alien sensors could not find them. They used mirrors and metal sheets to confuse alien targeting systems. They found ways to interfere with alien communications using equipment built from old televisions and radios. Engineer Tracy Lewis worked with teams of humans who turned ordinary objects into weapons. They made explosives from fertilizer and fuel. They created armor-piercing bullets from materials found in auto repair shops. They built radio jammers from parts taken out of microwave ovens. They turned their entire civilization into a weapon factory, Zexai said. Every garage became a place to build bombs. Every basement became a place to store weapons. Every human became a potential soldier. The Cytherian commanders tried to break human resistance by targeting their infrastructure. They destroyed power plants, water treatment facilities, and communication centers. They thought that if they made life difficult enough, the humans would give up and surrender. This plan failed completely. The humans had prepared for losing their infrastructure. They had backup systems, hidden supplies, and alternative ways of doing everything they needed to do. When the aliens cut off electricity, humans used hand-cranked radios and battery-powered lights. When aliens poisoned water supplies, humans had hidden tanks and purification systems. They were like insects, Zexai said. Cut off one leg, and they would keep walking. Poison their food, and they would find other food. Destroy their nests, and they would build new ones. Nothing we did could stop them from fighting. The ground war lasted 3 months. Every day brought new horrors that the Cytherian soldiers had never imagined. Every night brought new attacks that came from unexpected directions. Every week brought new human tactics that seemed to violate every rule of civilized warfare. By the end of the 2nd month, Cytherian soldiers were afraid to leave their bases. They had lost thousands of warriors to an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Morale was broken. Many soldiers refused to go on patrol. Some asked to be sent home rather than continue fighting. We had conquered 17 worlds, Zexai said. We had fought many different species, but we had never fought anyone like humans. They did not fight to win territory or resources. They fought because they refused to lose. They fought because they would rather die than surrender. The alien warrior paused and looked around the room again. His 3 eyes were filled with something that looked like respect mixed with terror. At the end of 3 months, we had killed millions of humans, he said quietly. But for every human we killed, they killed 5 of our soldiers. We were winning the war, but we were losing the army. And the humans showed no signs of stopping. They seemed ready to fight forever. The tribunal remained silent, knowing that worse revelations were coming. Zexai closed his 3 eyes for a long moment before continuing his story. When he opened them again, the fear in his voice was even stronger than before. The beings around the tribunal table could see that he was about to tell them something. That still gave him nightmares. After 3 months of fighting, our emperor sent a message to the human leaders, HFY said. He offered them one last chance to surrender. He promised that if they gave up, he would treat the survivors with kindness. He said we would build them new cities and give them good lives under our rule. The human response came 12 hours later. It was not what any civilized species would have given. Instead of negotiating or asking for terms, the humans made their own demand. They wanted all Cytherian forces to leave Earth immediately. If the aliens refused, the humans promised something that no species had ever threatened before. They said they would destroy their own world rather than let us have it, HFY whispered. At first, we thought they were lying. No intelligent species would kill their own planet. It made no sense. It was impossible to believe. General Frank Davis and Admiral Carol Bennett had called a meeting of all human military leaders. They met in a deep underground bunker that had been built to survive nuclear war. The room was filled with men and women who had been fighting the aliens for months. They were tired and angry, but they were not defeated. The human leaders made a decision. That changed everything. They called it Operation Hellstorm. It was a plan that no other species in the galaxy had ever imagined, because no other species was crazy enough to think of it. Dr. Kevin Young was a scientist who understood nuclear power. He had been working with engineer Tracy Lewis to turn every piece of human technology into a weapon. They had found ways to make nuclear power plants explode like giant bombs. They had learned how to turn space satellites into missiles that could destroy entire cities. We intercepted their communications, HFY said. We heard their plans, but we could not believe what we were hearing. They were going to poison their own air. They were going to burn their own forests. They were going to turn their beautiful blue planet into a dead rock floating in space. The humans had prepared for this moment from the beginning of the war. While their soldiers fought in the streets, their scientists and engineers had been building the most terrible weapon ever created. They had turned their entire planet into one giant bomb that they could set off whenever they wanted. Nuclear power plants were connected to explosive systems that could make them blow up all at once. Chemical factories were filled with poisons that could be released into the air and water. Satellites in space were loaded with nuclear warheads that could be dropped on any target on Earth. President Andrew Clark spoke to his people on television and radio. His message was broadcast to every human on Earth and to every alien who could understand human language. His words were calm and clear, like he was talking about something ordinary instead of the end of the world. He said that humanity would rather die free than live as slaves, HFY remembered. He said that if we wanted Earth, we could have it, but it would be a dead world with nothing left alive on it. He said his people had voted, and they chose death over surrender. The most frightening part was how the human population reacted to their leader's speech. Instead of panic or fear, they showed support for the plan. Parents hugged their children and told them they were proud to die as free humans. Workers went to their jobs and began preparing to destroy the places where they had spent their lives working. Mechanic Joe Turner and teacher Mary Johnson were examples of how ordinary humans reacted. They had families and homes and dreams for the future, but they were willing to give up everything rather than live under alien rule. They helped prepare the systems that would kill them and everyone they loved. We could not understand this, HFY said. Every species we had conquered before wanted to live. They would accept slavery if it meant survival. They would give up their freedom if it meant their children could grow up. But humans cared more about freedom than life itself. The humans had also prepared another surprise. Colonel Greg Adams led teams of soldiers who began something they called Scorched Earth operations. They started destroying everything that might be useful to the aliens. Food storage centers were burned. Water treatment plants were blown up. Mines were collapsed. Farms were poisoned. Marine Commander Sandra White organized the systematic destruction. of Earth's infrastructure. Roads were torn up. Bridges were destroyed. Airports were made useless. The humans were making sure that even if the aliens won the war, they would inherit a broken world that could not support life. They were destroying their own civilization, HFY said, his voice full of horror. They were taking apart everything their species had built over thousands of years. They were erasing their own history and culture rather than let us have it. The aliens tried to stop the humans from carrying out their plan. Catherian forces attacked the nuclear facilities and chemical plants. They tried to capture the satellite control centers. They fought desperately to prevent the humans from destroying their own world. But the humans had prepared for this too. Every important facility was defended by soldiers who knew they were fighting for the right to die on their own terms. These defenders fought with a fury that the aliens had never seen before. They knew that if they failed, their people would be forced to live as slaves. Parents like Steve Miller and Linda Parker taught their children how to use weapons and explosives. Boys and girls who should have been playing games and learning in school were instead learning how to kill alien soldiers and destroy alien equipment. The humans had turned their entire population into an army that included everyone from babies to grandparents. The children were the most frightening part for the Catherian soldiers. Human children would smile and wave at alien patrols, then throw grenades or shoot rifles when the aliens came close. Young humans who looked innocent and harmless turned out to be trained killers who felt no fear of death. We realized that we were not fighting an army, HFY said. We were fighting an entire species that had decided to commit suicide rather than surrender. Every human was a potential weapon. Every human was willing to die to hurt us. The aliens tried to negotiate. They offered better terms for surrender. They promised to let humans keep their own governments and cultures. They said they would leave Earth if the humans would agree to pay tribute and provide resources. The humans refused every offer. They said that any alien presence on Earth was unacceptable. They would rather see their planet turned into a lifeless desert than share it with invaders. Their answer was always the same: leave completely or watch the world burn. Our military leaders held emergency meetings, HFY continued. They tried to find a way to win without destroying the planet we came to conquer, but there was no way. The humans had made it impossible for us to win anything worth having. The psychological effect on Catherian soldiers was devastating. They had been trained to fight enemies who wanted to live. They knew how to deal with species that would surrender to save their children. But they had no training for fighting an enemy that preferred death to defeat. Many alien soldiers began to refuse orders. They said they did not want to be responsible for destroying an entire world. Others asked to be sent home, claiming they were too sick or injured to continue fighting. The mighty Catherian army was falling apart from fear and confusion. We had won battles on 17 worlds, HFY said. But we had never fought a species that was willing to destroy everything rather than lose. We did not know how to defeat an enemy that saw death as victory. The turning point came when human leaders set a deadline. They gave the aliens 72 hours to begin withdrawing from Earth. If any Catherian forces remained after that time, the humans would begin Operation Hellstorm. They would start destroying their own world, and they would not stop until nothing was left alive. We knew they were not bluffing, HFY said quietly. We had seen what humans were capable of. We knew they would do exactly what they promised. They would turn their beautiful planet into a tomb for both species. The alien warrior stopped speaking and stared at his hands. The room was completely silent as the tribunal members absorbed what they had heard. They were beginning to understand why the Catherian Empire had classified humanity as too dangerous to ever fight again. HFY's body trembled as he prepared to tell the most disturbing part of the story. The alien warrior looked around the tribunal room as if he expected human soldiers to appear from the shadows. His 3 eyes showed a fear that went deeper than normal battlefield terror. The worst part was not their willingness to die, HFY said slowly. The worst part was how creative they became at killing. In just a few weeks, humans invented new ways to hurt us that we had never seen before. They treated war like a game, where the goal was to find the most clever way to destroy their enemies. Dr. Gary Mitchell had been a peaceful scientist before the war. He studied diseases and worked to help sick people get better. But when the aliens invaded, he used his knowledge in ways that violated every rule of civilized warfare. He began creating biological weapons designed specifically to kill Cytherians. Working with biologist Ellen Davis, Dr. Mitchell studied alien prisoners who had been captured during the fighting. They learned how Cytherian bodies worked, what made them sick, and what could kill them quickly. Then they used this knowledge to create viruses and bacteria that were harmless to humans but deadly to aliens. They turned our own biology against us, HFY said. They made diseases that attacked only our kind. Humans could carry these sicknesses without getting hurt, but if we breathed the same air or touched the same surfaces, we would die slowly and painfully. The biological weapons spread through alien camps like invisible fire. Cytherian soldiers would wake up feeling weak and sick. Within days, they would be too ill to fight. Within a week, they would be dead. The humans had turned their own cities into death traps where the very air could kill alien invaders. Chemist Paul Wright and lab assistant Nancy Kim worked on different kinds of weapons. They created chemical compounds that could eat through Cytherian armor like acid through metal. They made gases that would destroy alien breathing equipment and suffocate soldiers inside their protective suits. We had armor that could stop bullets and energy weapons, HFY remembered. But these human chemicals would dissolve our protection like it was made of paper. Our soldiers would put on their best armor in the morning and be dead by afternoon because the humans had sprayed invisible poison on the walls and floors. The humans showed a frightening ability to learn and adapt during combat. Every time the aliens tried a new tactic, the humans would figure out how to counter it within hours. They seemed to understand warfare in ways that went beyond training or experience. Sergeant Chris Evans and Corporal Julie Stone became famous among human forces for their ability to invent new fighting techniques during battles. They would watch how alien soldiers moved and fought, then immediately create new ways to defeat them. They could change their strategies in the middle of combat, based on what they learned from watching their enemies. They studied us like we were insects in a laboratory, HFY said. Every time we did something, they would find a weakness and use it against us. They learned faster than we could adapt. We felt like we were fighting an enemy that could read our minds. The psychological warfare became even more sophisticated as the humans learned what frightened Cytherian soldiers most. They discovered that aliens were afraid of certain sounds, smells, and images. Then they used this knowledge to create weapons that attacked the mind instead of the body. Major Ryan Kelly and Captain Lovra Martinez developed tactics that used human casualties as bait for alien forces. They knew that Cytherian military culture required soldiers to help wounded enemies, so they would set up scenes where injured humans appeared to need medical attention, then trigger hidden explosives when alien medics came to help. They turned our honor against us, HFY said with disgust. They knew we would try to save wounded beings, even if they were our enemies. So they used our compassion as a trap to kill our medical teams. They made us afraid to show mercy. The humans also learned to use their own emotions as weapons. They would broadcast recordings of human children crying or singing over alien communication channels. They would show pictures of Earth's animals and beautiful places to alien soldiers, then destroy those same animals and places while the aliens watched. They wanted us to feel guilty for invading their world, HFY explained. They would show us what we were destroying, then make us watch as they destroyed it themselves to prevent us from having it. They made us feel responsible for horrors that they created. Perhaps most disturbing was the human ability to switch between extreme violence and gentle kindness within moments. Soldiers like Private Nick Thompson could be killing alien warriors with brutal efficiency, then immediately switch to treating wounded prisoners with medical care and respect. Nurse Patricia Adams was an example of this confusing human nature. She would spend her mornings treating injured alien prisoners, giving them food and medicine and comfort. Then she would spend her afternoons developing new poisons and weapons to kill more alien soldiers. She seemed to see no contradiction between healing and killing. We could not understand how one person could be so caring and so cruel at the same time, Zexai said. She would save the life of an alien soldier, then use what she learned from treating him to create better ways to kill his companions. She would smile and be kind while planning our destruction. The humans had also turned their industrial capacity into a weapon production system almost overnight. Mechanic Tony Lopez and welder Alice Green transformed automobile factories into military equipment manufacturing centers. Within days, they were producing armor-piercing ammunition and explosive devices using tools designed to build cars. Their entire civilization became a weapon factory, Zexai said. Every garage, every workshop, every school building was turned into a place for making instruments of death. Children who should have been learning mathematics were instead learning how to build bombs. The speed of human innovation was terrifying. Ideas that should have taken months or years to develop were being created and implemented within days. Human engineers would see a problem in the morning and have a solution working by evening. They seemed to have no limits on their creativity when it came to finding new ways to kill. The humans began combining their own technology with captured alien equipment to create hybrid weapons that were more effective than either could be alone. Dr. Richard Lee and systems analyst Monica Taylor reverse-engineered Cytherian energy weapons and combined them with human explosive technology. They stole our own weapons and made them better, Zexai said. They took our advanced technology and improved it using their primitive materials and insane ideas. They created weapons that we had never imagined, using our own science against U.S. The psychological effect on Cytherian forces was devastating. Soldiers who had been proud warriors became nervous and jumpy. They were afraid to eat food that might be poisoned, afraid to breathe air that might carry disease, afraid to touch surfaces that might be covered with chemicals. Many alien soldiers developed what humans called shell shock. They would shake uncontrollably, refuse to leave their shelters, or attack their own companions in fits of terror. The stress of fighting an enemy that could kill them in so many invisible ways broke the minds of warriors who had fought successfully on many worlds. By the 4th month, our soldiers were more afraid of things they could not see than things they could fight, Zexai said. They knew that every breath might be their last. Every surface they touched might kill them. Every kindness shown by humans might be a trap. The humans had also begun preparing weapons that could reach beyond Earth. They were building rockets and spacecraft using a combination of their own technology and captured alien equipment. Their goal was not just to defend their world, but to carry their war to other planets. They were not content to just defeat us on Earth, Zexai said quietly. They wanted to hunt us back to our home worlds. They were preparing to become the invaders, to bring their terrible creativity to our peaceful planets. The alien warrior paused and looked at each member of the tribunal. His voice became very quiet as he delivered his final observation about human innovation in warfare. We had conquered 17 worlds using superior technology and military discipline, he said. But humans conquered us using imagination and the willingness to try anything, no matter how crazy or dangerous it seemed. They fought with their minds as much as their weapons, and their minds were more frightening than any technology we possessed. The room remained silent as the tribunal members absorbed the horror of what they had heard. They were beginning to understand why the galaxy now feared humanity more than any other species. Zexai's voice was barely a whisper as he began the final part of his testimony. The alien warrior's 3 eyes were filled with something that looked like respect mixed with pure terror. The beings around the tribunal table could see that this last part of his story was the most important and the most frightening. The end came when we captured one of their leaders, Zexai said slowly. Fleet Admiral Marcus Thompson was shot down during a failed orbital assault. We thought capturing a high-ranking human would give us information about their plans and maybe a way to negotiate. The interrogation of Admiral Thompson revealed something that changed everything the Catherians thought they knew about the war. The humans had never been fighting just to defend Earth. From the very beginning, they had been planning a counterattack that would take the war to alien space. He told us things that made our commanders panic, Zexai remembered. The humans were not just trying to survive. They were preparing to hunt us. They had been studying our technology, learning our weaknesses, and getting ready to bring their horrible war to our home worlds. Colonel Janet Russell and Intelligence Officer Derek Brown had been gathering information about Catherian military structure and technology from the moment the first alien ship entered Earth's solar system. Every captured weapon, every piece of alien equipment, every prisoner had been studied carefully to learn how the enemy worked. The humans had reverse-engineered alien technology faster than anyone thought possible. Dr. Richard Lee and systems analyst Monica Taylor had created hybrid weapons that combined human creativity with alien engineering. They had built ships that could travel between stars using captured alien engines powered by human nuclear reactors. They had stolen our technology and made it better, Zexai said. They took our star drives and improved them. They took our weapons and made them more deadly. They took our communication systems and used them to spy on our military networks. The most terrifying discovery was that humans had been preparing for interstellar war from the beginning. They had not just been defending their planet. They had been building a fleet capable of attacking alien worlds. Their goal was not peace, but the complete destruction of any species that threatened Earth. Admiral Thompson explained the human strategy with calm confidence. If the Catherians did not withdraw completely from Earth, humanity would launch what they called a campaign of total war. Human forces would attack every Catherian world, every space station, every military base, until the alien empire was completely destroyed. He said they would not stop until every Catherian in the galaxy was dead, Zexai whispered. He said humans do not forgive attacks on their home. He said they would hunt us across the stars for generations if necessary. The human threat was not empty. They had already captured enough alien vessels to reach Catherian space. Commander Alex Turner and Major Deanna Scott had been training human crews to pilot stolen alien ships. These crews were volunteers who expected to die in their attacks, but were willing to sacrifice themselves to hurt the enemy. They had turned our own ships into weapons against us, Zexai said. Human pilots were learning to fly our vessels. Human engineers were modifying our weapons. Human soldiers were preparing to use our technology to destroy our worlds. The humans had also demonstrated their willingness to use suicide tactics that made their forces incredibly dangerous even when outnumbered. Human pilots would crash their ships into alien targets rather than retreat. Human soldiers would detonate explosives that killed themselves along with their enemies. The Catherian military leaders realized they faced an impossible choice. They could continue the war and eventually conquer Earth, but the cost would be the complete destruction of both civilizations. The humans had made it clear that they would rather see the galaxy burn than accept defeat. Our emperor held emergency meetings with all his advisors, Zexai continued. They had to decide whether to risk everything to conquer one planet, or to retreat and save the Empire. The humans had made victory more expensive than defeat. The final human ultimatum was delivered by Ambassador Charles Davis and General Patricia Miller. They gave the Catherians 48 hours to begin complete withdrawal from Earth. If any alien forces remained after that deadline, humanity would begin their campaign of total war against the Catherian Empire. The ultimatum included detailed information about human capabilities that proved they were not bluffing. They had identified the locations of major Catherian worlds, military bases, and industrial centers. They had planned attacks that would cripple the alien empire's ability to wage war. They knew more about our empire than many of our own generals, HFY said. They had been studying us while we were studying them, but they had learned faster and better. They knew our weaknesses better than we knew theirs. The psychological impact on Catherian leadership was devastating. The idea that a primitive species could threaten the mighty empire seemed impossible, but the evidence was undeniable. Humans had proven their ability to defeat superior forces through tactics that no civilized species would use. The withdrawal began immediately. Catherian ships left Earth's surface and orbital space as quickly as possible. There was no attempt to negotiate better terms or to save face. The Empire's leaders were terrified of what humans might do if given more time to prepare their offensive. It was the fastest retreat in our military history, HFY said with shame in his voice. We ran from Earth like frightened children. Ships that had conquered worlds fled from a planet they could have destroyed with weapons of mass destruction. But the Catherians had learned that destroying Earth would not solve their problem. The humans had already spread beyond their home planet. They had hidden bases, secret ships, and sleeper agents throughout the solar system. Even if Earth was destroyed, human survivors would still carry out their promise of revenge. As the alien fleet retreated, human leaders made their final communication. It was not a celebration of victory or a demand for reparations. It was a warning that would be remembered throughout the galaxy for generations. President Andrew Clark spoke for all humanity when he said that Earth would never forget the invasion. Any species that attacked human worlds or human people would face the same total war that the Catherians had barely escaped. Humanity would not start wars, but they would finish them completely. They promised to leave us alone if we left them alone, HFY said. But they also promised that any species that threatened them would be hunted to extinction. They made it clear that Earth was now off limits to everyone. The aftermath of the war changed how every species in the galaxy viewed humanity. The Catherian Empire classified Earth as a never-again world and forbade any contact with human space. Other civilizations that had been planning their own invasions of Earth immediately canceled those plans. We had learned that humans are not like other species, HFY said. They do not fight for territory or resources or glory. They fight because they refuse to be conquered. They fight because they would rather die than surrender. They fight because they see war as a test of who wants to win more. The Catherian military began studying human tactics and psychology, trying to understand how a supposedly primitive species had defeated their advanced forces. What they learned terrified them even more than the actual fighting had. Humans are natural warriors, HFY explained. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They have learned every possible way to hurt and kill. When they turned all that knowledge against us, we had no defense. The most disturbing realization was that humans had not been fighting at their full capacity. The invasion had interrupted their own wars with each other. If humanity ever united completely and focused all their military knowledge on external enemies, no force in the galaxy could stop them. They were fighting us while also fighting among themselves, HFY said. If they ever stopped their internal conflicts and worked together completely, they could conquer the entire galaxy. They have the knowledge, the creativity, and the will to destroy anyone who opposes them. As HFY finished his testimony, he looked directly at each member of the tribunal. His final words served as both a report and a warning to every species represented in the room. The galaxy should fear humanity, he said quietly. Not because they are aggressive or evil, but because they are capable of anything when threatened. They can turn their entire civilization into a weapon. They can sacrifice everything they have to hurt their enemies. They can learn faster, adapt quicker, and fight longer than any species we have ever encountered. He paused and took a shaky breath before delivering his final statement. My advice to every civilization in the galaxy is simple. Leave Earth alone. Do not threaten humans. Do not attack their worlds. Do not try to conquer them. Because if you do, you will learn what we learned. You will discover that some species are too dangerous to fight, even if you can win. Humans are one of those species. They should be marked as untouchable and left in peace forever. The tribunal chamber fell silent as Zexhia's testimony ended. The 12 representatives sat quietly, absorbing the implications of what they had heard.